Welcome to this edition of Red Sea Roundup. I am the host of the day, Pam Marvin. I'm so happy to be with you here today. My guest joining me in studio is Shannon Allgeyer. Allgeyer. I'm so sorry. I absolutely adore Shannon. I'm looking forward to telling you more about her. But before we start that, I want to say good morning to Caleb. Good morning, Caleb.
Good morning, Pam.
It's good to be back in the driver's seat. Always wonderful to be here at St. Mary's doing Red Sea Roundup. I just want to say thank you to Dennis Maka and et al. For allowing me to continue to do this. Well, today's topic is very near and dear to my heart. We are going to be talking all things natural family planning, fertility awareness-based methods, contraceptives, why and why not, what it all means, different types, all things related to this that we get lots of questions. And so we're hoping to just speak a lot of truth to our listening audience. Now, Shannon is very dear to me because she is an intern for Fertility Care Practitioner as well, like myself. So one of the few people in town I can actually talk shop with. So I'm so excited to get to talk shop with you. Well, welcome, Shannon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and also congratulations too on your pregnancy.
Yes.
So that's very exciting.
Yeah, having a baby boy, 25 weeks pregnant.
Wow, so great, great. You're glowing. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, you know what? I really want to start out with kind of the broad picture of natural family planning, because I've been doing this now for 7 years, going on 8 this August. And I've actually seen things change a little bit as far as what it is and how people look at it, just from my little perspective in this corner of Bryan College Station. So to start off with, when I first heard about natural family planning, that is an umbrella term for many, many different types of models underneath.
Yep.
Right. And my first exposure to it was literally just a book that talked more about the science of fertility. What about you? What was your first encounter with natural family planning?
I believe, I was in college and you came to speak at natural family planning. And honestly, I think it's when you first started because you used some of the old slide decks.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking a long time ago. And this was with an all-girl group. I think there were like 50 of us in there. Do you remember that?
No, I remember that, but this is the first time I knew you were in there.
Yeah, and so that was my first introduction of NFP.
While you were here at A&M?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so it was not through, CCD. Obviously, it's too young. Middle school or high school education. And theology of the body really didn't take off when I was in high school either. Just put in perspective, I graduated in 2013 in high school and then 2017 in college, for people listening. But when I went to A&M and St. Mary's, that was when I didn't know I wanted more and craved more and just so enriched in my faith in NFP and theology of the body and what that means. But true NFP was when you presented so long ago.
Mostly the science behind it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so very little understood. So one of the things I do when I do my intros, Shannon, is I usually do mine, 2-on-1. So the couple comes in, usually for marriage prep, and I'll come in and I'll say, well, today I hope I'll teach you something. If I don't, you'll be the first couple in 7 years that didn't learn something.
Right.
So I can almost guarantee you I'll learn something. So listeners today, while we won't go into a lot of really nitty-gritty specifics, we will tell you there are many, many things that we as human beings still don't know about our fertility. And I always say that's why Shannon and I have these jobs, to be able to teach it.
Yeah. It really is a ministry too.
So much so. I've loved that part about it.
Yeah. All the couples, women that you impact is just...
I had a moment today, a very faithful couple. When he first moved to town, I met him and he asked, I said, how can I pray for you? He said, would you pray for my wife, like to bring me a wife because I really want a wife. So I started praying for his wife because he was in his late 20s at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Within the year, he met his wife.
Oh,
Wonderful human. She's amazing. And then they married not too long after that. And then they came to see me for fertility issues and post-surgery, so forth and so on. Well, today they were in the office with the baby's 10-month checkup. And I had that moment of just overwhelming at God's goodness about here was this faithful couple who just very steadily trusted in the Lord, and their son got here. And I got to be one little cog in all the wheels it takes to get there. It was just one of the most amazing moments for me.
Well, with the personal testimony for me, I mean, you pushed me to have surgery, go to a NAPRO doctor, which we'll go into so much more details about that. And it was definitely the Holy Spirit that had to work for a year and a half. But you're the one that initiated that, right? And so as practitioners, you get to be the vessels for the Holy Spirit. And, God wants children. Right. He's not gonna prevent it. So.
And that just reminds me, we are going to get more into the stories, beautiful stories about how NFP works in the couples, like real life stories of very satisfied and happy couples. So I think that's a really great place to kind of wrap up the show with. But before we start, or for now we've kind of got that kind of cap going, I want to talk about one of the most asked questions I get, or like, well, tell me about the different type of methods of family planning, natural family planning that are out there. And I'm interested to hear what you tell people when they ask you that question.
Yeah, so I pretty much do the big three, and then I do an additional one. Creighton Model, obviously, you and I both teach that. And that is just monitoring the cervical mucus. That is the tangible biomarker that our bodies, women, produce. And it is the only model, too, that partners with other providers, doctors, surgeons all over the world now that know how to read charts and cervical mucus and looks for the abnormal, normal signs, that kind of thing. So that's one. And then you have Marquette. So
it's gained a lot of popularity. When I first started doing this 7 years, Marquette was not really on the radar. So to give you an idea of what Marquette is, Clear Blue Easy is one of it. It's where, for lack of a uncrass way, you pee on a stick. Yeah. And it has a little machine that goes into it. And it tests, I'm not sure exactly, but I think it's testing for luteinizing hormone.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So that has really picked up a lot of steam. I'm even having some women who like to do both, Creighton and the Marquette Method at the same time. Just they want that double assuredness, right?
Sure, yeah. And then there's Symptothermal. So just checking your temperature, same time, every day. I think now they even have the bands.
Yeah, temp drop.
Yes,
that's pretty cool.
Yes, and then hooked up to an app. And so that's depending on someone's situation in their life, that could be really easy for them. And if that works for them, that's great.
Right. And what I've learned too, though, it's also tracking cervical mucus at the same time as the temperature. Now, I get this question all the time. Why doesn't Creighton use the temperature too? I get this question so much. And I
got that question yesterday.
So I actually asked that question when I was in EP1 with Dr. Hilgers. I said, why don't we do that? And he said, because he talked about temperature all the time too. And I said, well, you're talking about it quite a lot, but yet we don't use it in the Creighton model. And why is that? And he said it was not statistically stable enough of an indicator to use in the model. What does that mean? That means while, yes, the temperature is an indicator, it's not consistent around all women or for all women or even one woman consistently. So it wasn't consistent and statistically stable enough to include with Creighton model. And so the only time I've ever said, you may want to consider the tent drop app is if a woman with continuous mucus where she's just feeling very insecure about this post-peak mucus, then I recommend, look, if this makes you feel better, then go ahead and use that one too. Do to get over it. So
Yeah.
those are the big three, and then there's one.
Yeah. The last one is I recently had clients that come in and they're like, oh, well, I just do my own thing, and it worked for these past pregnancies. And I'm like, whatever works. And so honestly, that can kind of even lead into what kind of resources did they have to learn about NFP? Why did they have to learn it on their own? Why did they choose their own method?
Right.
And it was, temperature, pee on a stick, and then also too, like a couple over time gets in a groove. If the woman's cycle doesn't change, during
Which it usually does.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a little nervous what my cycle is going to look like after I have this baby. So I will be coming to you.
Oh, yeah. Happy to help you navigate.
Yeah. Thank you. But that's, why do they have to learn their own method?
Right.
And
well, one of the things I always like to tell people asking about trying to find the best fit for them, there's a twofold. Number one, high quality NFP models usually come with an instructor. That's definitely, so like Marquette does, Symptothermal does, Creighton most definitely, right? Now, I also say with Creighton, it is the only NFP method that's tied to a certain reproductive technology called NAPRO technology, natural procreative technology, which is restorative.
Right.
So when I do intro sessions in big crowds of people, I usually will say, if the woman has any concerns about her cycles, she should do Creighton.
Yeah.
Also, the Marquette can get expensive. It can get expensive.
Yes.
So that's usually not for first time starting out, learning the discipline of the Creighton method is really beautiful on different levels, the discipline of it in general. But I could go on about that, of course. Full disclosure, I am biased. Yeah. I am biased.
Yeah. Well, I think at the last intro session here, even if their cycles are normal or they think that they're normal, which mine were, and then I ended up having stage 3 endometriosis, I encourage everybody. I'm like, just start off with Creighton.
Yes.
If there's nothing weird about it, our ministry within the Catholic faith is NFP. We want to eliminate contraception.
Yes.
We just have a specialty in the Creighton model.
Right.
But if, I don't want that person, to use another method. And then later on down the road, they're having heartache over fertility issues when, could the Creighton model address it? Maybe not. Maybe Marquette's better. Whatever works for them.
Right. But as you're saying, the only model that has technology for reproductive sciences tied with it is Creighton.
Yep.
And that's why I think that's why I know that's why I have it, because I was recruited by my family physician to work in her clinic. And I think that's been a big pull for you as well, because it had the NAPRO side.
Yeah. So I have my master's in healthcare administration. And so from a patient's perspective, having a network of providers, educators, having a good electronic medical record system, all those things is very important. And so, when the Creighton model was invented in the 70s, or the organization, long time ago, been around.
He started doing his research in '68 after this encyclical Humanae.
Yeah. So, and he had, this man had a vision. And so what's really cool about, when a client comes in, it's reassuring of like, I will chart with you. I'm on this journey with you. You have a practitioner. If we need to escalate to a NAPRO doctor, we can do that because we're connected to that. There's so many in Texas. We're blessed in that way, but that's so important. Like a lot of patients now, they have a diagnosis and they're trying to figure out how to do it on their own. But having a practitioner and kind of being the gatekeeper for all of that is very reassuring and comforting for a lot of people.
So true.
Yeah.
Okay. So I kind of want to turn to the naysayers that say Creighton model is contraception. Number one. And I've gotten that before too. Like describe to me or tell me why it's not. Do you want to take this one? Why it's not contraception? Why is NFP not contraception?
So what we use and the language that we use is it's not sexy, but it's selective intercourse. We always, the Creighton Model is to achieve or to avoid a pregnancy. We're trained that from the very, very beginning. One of the most important questions, I think actually the most important question that we ask couples at the very end of the session is, are you receptive to an unplanned pregnancy? And we want to get the man's perspective if he's there, and then we want to get the woman's perspective. One, are they on the same page? Two, why are they not receptive if they do answer that question? But what's great about NFP, and it's a lot of trust and understanding, and how your body is made and how God wants to implement his will and his plan in that family is, you don't have any barriers. You're fulfilling the sacrament of marriage. You're being open to life. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that the way I understood it is that because natural family planning is not preventing a natural functioning of your bodies, it's not preventing anything. It's not shutting anything down. Right. It is not contracepting. So you're not doing anything to avoid a pregnancy other than selecting timing. Yeah. So it's all about the timing. Mm-hmm. And that is, now I think what a lot of people get kind of caught up on is the church teaches that if you should have a compelling reason to avoid a pregnancy. It says compelling reason. And this is in the catechism, I believe. I can't quote the number. So I do counsel people sometimes about what is compelling, and I think they left it very pastorally open like that for what is compelling to the couple. Mm-hmm. One of the more common things I hear is financial. Mm-hmm. That's compelling for them and that couple. Another thing is mom's mental health. Maybe she's got 5 babies already and is kind of feeling overwhelmed. Well, yeah, maybe take a little bit of a break from a new birth until you start to feel like you got your head above water. Mm-hmm. That could be compelling to her. Maybe not for other women, right? So I think that is really ultimately in the Catholic sphere, the gotcha. Mm-hmm. What is compelling reason to avoid?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. You know people who believe it's contraceptive. So can you give me more insight onto their side of the story?
Yeah. I mean, it really could be just a variety of reasons. The family that I know, it is, they have a lot of money. They just, they are very wealthy. So they do have the ability to have a lot of kids if they wanted to. We also know, especially in this community too, the exact opposite. They have a lot of kids. Do they use a method? I don't know. But it really is up to the couple on how they, right. Yeah.
So they maybe use nature take its course method.
Pretty much.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful if some people can do that. I've had people they have come to me, they started off their marriages and in their early 30s, 5 kids later, they said, Pam, just help me learn to slow it down. That's all I want. That, I've had my 5 kids. I'm not closed to life at all. Mm-mm. I just want to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah. But I think the key thing that you said is the timing. We're utilizing the gift of our bodies and how God designed the man and woman, and the compelling reason. Mm-hmm. Just to kind of summarize.
Yeah. Well, let's also then, it's really on my heart too. I have a lot of passion about talking to Catholics, maybe listening to us right now, who don't buy it. They contracept because they say, the rest of the world does, and the Catholic Church is just really outdated. So let's address those people. Mm. My primary thing that just was very moving to me as a young newly married was, I'm holding back my fertility. I love all of you, but I'm not giving all myself to you. I'm just going to hold this back. That's just mine alone and not for you to share it. And that was very compelling for me. And that indeed is what the church teaches, is that it is a free gift, full gift, complete gift of yourself, the marital union and the marital act. And to contracept in any way, hormonal, barrier, anything like that, again, intentionally keep your body from functioning as it should or using a barrier, is a slap in the face to the Lord. In my opinion, it's a slap in the face. Welcome into your bed. He wants you to use your intellect, your strength, your willpower. Now, that reminds me of what Pope Paul VI, who wrote Humanae Vitae. So I challenge anyone out there, if you really don't understand why Catholics believe in natural family planning and really believe contraceptive is the evil that it is, go read Humanae Vitae. Shannon, I did that when I was, I guess, early in my Catholicism. I read it and was so compelling and how prophetic it was.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm just one of those people that if someone tells me you should do this, and I want to say why, you have to give me the evidence why I need to do this. I want to know the why behind it. It gets me in trouble sometimes if they don't have good answers. I might not be so obedient, but this was one of them. I went and researched it. I went and read Humanae Vitae. I gave Paul the document after that, my husband, and never contracepted again. Because I was taught by the priest in my marriage prep, just use your conscience when it comes to contraception. I mean, it was, the 80s were rough, guys.
Yeah.
Rough catechesis, so that's not true. That's not how it works.
Well, and the Catholic Church hasn't changed their stance since 1968, whenever he wrote the Humanae Vitae. But we had to take a stance when the pill came out in the 50s.
It was around 68.
Yeah.
It was right before that, 65, I believe it was. So it was just amazing, the document. Like I said, it is the most prophetic. He prophesied what he thought would happen if we contracepted on a wide scale. And every single one of these things has come to pass. Even when I read it in the 90s, not everything had come to pass. The pornography had not taken off like it has now. So the objectification of women was in there. The unwed motherhood was in there. Domestic violence was in there. Infidelity was in there. He predicted all of these things as a result and consequence of contraception.
Right.
He was right on.
I know.
Right on.
And it's not that long to read.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Humanae Vitae, that sounds really intimidating. But I think it's 12 pages.
It's not long.
That's just so enlightening.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so I would really, if you are intellectually honest Catholic, go read the document. Talk to a friend who practices NFP and ask them why. Why do you do this? What's behind it?
Yeah.
What are the benefits? Now let's talk about some stories.
Yeah.
I have so many stories of women coming for different reasons. The most recent one was someone horrified to get off of birth control, but at the advising of her priest, she was doing so. She was really being obedient. It was really beautiful, but she's been scared. So she got off the pill and she's starting to chart. And it's like this light bulb goes off in her head, like, oh my gosh, I've never known my body this well. And I can see my fertility window, because that's what we teach, the window of fertility. And she's a different person now. And this is just like, oh gosh, about 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
About 6 weeks after going off birth control.
Why was she scared?
Scared of getting pregnant. Because everybody thinks, oh, if you do NP, you're getting pregnant right away.
Yeah.
Not if you come to see Shannon or myself.
Yeah. Yeah, we got you.
We got you. We'll do a good job. We'll walk with you. Yeah. And one of the things I always like to say, Shannon, in our intros sessions, the PowerPoint has 99.6% effective and then 96.3% effective. And I usually tell my couples, I say, look, those numbers right there are completely in your control based on how well the charting is done and how you follow the instructions and the mutual motivation. The better you do it, the higher that number goes. You get sloppy, the lower it goes.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of mine.
Yeah. But I think I had a client who was, okay, we got to back up, actually.
Okay. Let's back up.
So why do women even get on the pill in the first place?
There's so many reasons.
So many reasons.
Not good ones at all.
No. And I think just going back to healthcare, a lot of these doctors are trained, oh, well, you just have cramps, heavy periods, whatever. Here's an easy solution to fix. And so when you are 13, 14 years old, maybe 4, 5 years, or maybe you're just starting your period, into it, and you're like, this is terrible. I go to a doctor, and then you're innocently about to go on a pill, and then they're on it for years, Pam, years,
Okay.
until they come see us.
That's right.
And now we're reversing the effects. And when they're off the pill, there are some people, some women that are very lucky that their cycles go back to normal and they can get pregnant right away. There are, most of them have huge consequences. I mean, it takes a year plus to regulate back to your normal cycles. And it's really sad to see. Now, the blessing is they're coming in because they want to get off the pill. And another positive is, and I don't know if you see it on social media, but there is a kind of like a slight shift of people wanting to be organic.
Oh, I see it every
all
day.
Natural. I don't want blood clots anymore from these pills. A variety of reasons, or I want to get down to the root problem.
They make me feel awful.
Yes.
It's stolen my libido.
Yeah.
I've gotten that one too.
Weight gain, acne.
Isn't it a carcinogen also?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty big one,
Yeah.
right?
So, ladies and gentlemen, the birth control pill is the only known verified carcinogen that's allowed by the FDA for women. Only known carcinogen, and it's allowed. Yeah, I'd say the majority of ladies that I've seen coming off the pill were all put on it to mask a problem that was underlying. So I always say you owe it to yourself to figure out what's the underlying problem.
Right.
Because we're talking about case studies. Let me give you one. This is early in my career, very similar to what the woman you were just talking about are like. So she had irregular periods in high school, so she went on the pill. At 28, so that's high school, then now at 28, she's going off the pill because she's married and she's ready to have a baby. And to make a long story short, she had PCOS. So it went long undiscovered in her, ovaries. If you don't know what that is, it is like the follicle will develop within the ovary, but it never ruptures. So the ovaries then become the size of anywhere between oranges or grapefruits. They can really get that big with the follicles just loaded up in there, right? And that was what was happening underlying all those years that she was on the pill, right? It took quite some time. Long story short, it took about 5 years, and she was just amazing, slow and steady, to keep after it. And she did have surgery. She went on to have her son, and then he was in for a well checkup. I went in to go see her, and she was about 6 months pregnant with her next child. And I was just thrilled for them. Good. But very consistent. But that's, the pill is masking an underlying problem. You owe it to yourself to figure out and go seek help. Start with a NAPRO physician. If you're in Houston, we recommend Dr. Brooke Weaver, and I believe it's David Brinkman.
Yeah, David Brinkman,
yes.
Dr. Cargis, and then Dr. Hernandez.
The whole Veritas down there. And
Dr. Hilgers.
Dr. Thomas Hilgers is down there as well. And anyway, you can always get in touch with Red Sea Radio to ask for more of these doctors and physicians' name if you want to get you hooked up with a NAPRO physician.
Yeah. But another kind of story I do want to talk about is, you see these really good Catholics, these faithful Catholics that are maybe taught NFP. They're all depends how much they absorb and how much they understand, but they still want to do and use contraception within their marriage,
Right.
And why. And so we see clients, who want to get off the pill, and then once they fully understand how great it is to maximize your sacrament of marriage, that they regret that decision. I think if you are a young adult woman right now, do not be afraid to reach out to your girlfriends and have those really honest conversations about contraception. What do you want in your marriage? What can you do right now as a single woman to prepare for your marriage? And how can that be fulfilling by letting go and trusting God to get off the pill, figure out what's really going on with you, enter that marriage with full preparation, and have it be completely fulfilled.
And another thing I want to add to that, Shannon, is I'm seeing a lot of fear in the women's eyes.
Right.
The unknown is really horrifying them. I have another client who is in her late 30s, and she's been on the pill, and she was put on it for just hormonal fluctuations, not even for birth control. I think it's for emotional reasons. And so she's absolutely horrified. She even came to her first follow-up, still contracepting. We talked to her. I hope she's feeling better, but I can't tell you how many women who've come off of it that say, oh my mercy, I feel so much better now. And they never knew how much better they could feel.
Yeah. It's almost like there needs to be focus groups.
Yeah.
With, the use of the pill or contraception, because you're not in it alone. If you are scared, it's normal to feel that way. And you have a community that can support you to get off.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. So we can talk a little bit more about, when Evan was talking to us, we've been coached before we came in about what do we talk about. So Evan was saying something about just how it works, right?
Yeah.
How is NFP? Well, I got a funny story. I've told you this story. I don't think I've told Caleb this story. This happened to me 3 years apart, one early, one not too long ago, where after I'd given an introductory session and I spoke about now a woman's cycle, and this is very foundational, very basic that most women don't even know, is so if a cycle is basically 28 days from the beginning of the period to the last day before the next period starts. And in that 28 days, there's a window of the mucus cycle. That's the fertility window. Okay? That's the basics right there. That is your fertility window. So story is 3 years apart. Couple come up to me after, said almost identically the same thing. Miss Marvin, we're animal science majors, and we learned this about the cattle, but we didn't know it about ourselves. I am not kidding you. So they're in bovine sciences, you're learning about cervical mucus of the cattle so you can do insemination and whatnot, but they're not teaching it about us human beings yet. Yeah. What gives?
So are cows.
It's mammals. It makes sense, right? But I was in a coffee shop, years ago, and I saw a young lady. She was doing some, we live in a college town, so probably went to A&M, and she was doing anatomy and physiology, and she was going over the female reproductive system. And I said, have you ever heard about the cervical crypts? They're talking about that yet? No, what is that? That's another thing that's not known.
I took anatomy and physiology. We didn't talk about cervical mucus.
In cervical crypts?
No.
Less unknown. Okay, so to get more specific in just the biology, and we may need a disclaimer at the beginning of our show, Caleb. I'll leave that up to you. But
knowledge is power.
Yes, it is. So the cervical crypts are all along the cervical canal, and depending on the rise of hormones, whether estrogen or progesterone, it produces a very specific type of mucus that helps in conception, and then not necessarily fertilization, but making the womb a very happy, healthy place. That's the progesterone aspect of it. So the cervical crypts is where it originates, and we don't know about those. It's not taught in NFP.
And we teach you how to separate your normal vaginal discharge and your cervical mucus. And it's really obvious. Like the cervical mucus does not absorb into the tissue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can literally pick it up and stretch it, look at it, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I mean, yeah, we can teach you.
You can teach you. There's a window. Think about it. There's a window of fertility within the 28-ish day cycle. Right. All things being normal and healthy. And I think most women, especially of childbearing age, owe it to themselves to find out how healthy they are. And you know what I found? And I don't know if you've seen this yet. I had just had someone in my office today, young woman. She said, I know something's not right. Something's not right with my cycles. So she heard from a friend, went and saw Dr. Jamelka Weaver, and then she came and referred her to me. Says, go chart with Pam. Great. And then come back and see me so we can see what's going on. And sure enough, she's got a lot going on.
Yeah. Talking with a friend.
Yes.
That community.
Yes, thank you.
That conversation.
Have a conversation with your girlfriends. Because we don't even know. You don't know what you don't know, right?
She's kind of like voodoo.
Yeah.
But no, we ought to be.
So, still one of the questions that I feel kind of hanging open, and this is what I've been asking since we've been preparing for this, is I really wonder, ladies and gentlemen, why Catholics are still contracepting. I just don't get it. I'm really dumbfounded. If you're one of those, this is a pre-recorded show, but if that's you, if you can anonymously write into the Facebook page of Red Sea Roundup, KEDC, and just send us a message and say why you do. I'm really be interested to know because I'm at a loss.
Mm-hmm. Well, and different generations too. I think answering in those comments,
right.
Well, I mean, I think you've both talked a lot about women being afraid to get pregnant. Look at what the media tells us about having children. Children are screaming. They're going to make your house messy. They're terrible. You're not going to have any time. And so I think a lot of it probably just simply boils down to selfishness. Because
culture of death, man.
Yeah, it's a culture of selfishness. And
what is the new acronym for couples that don't have kids? And
DINK.
Dinks. They're dinks.
Yeah, but apparently that's not new.
Oh.
Apparently that's been around for a while now.
Oh.
Probably since the 60s, my guess. About the same time contraception came out.
Yeah, but now they've got dink doos, which are double income, no kids dog owners.
Oh.
So don't be a dink do.
Yeah.
Don't be a dink.
Okay.
Be a good Catholic.
So before we round up this roundup, we've got about 4 minutes left.
Oh my gosh, it goes by so fast.
I know.
We might need a part 2.
For sure. One of the things on my heart that I wanted to get to is symptoms in a chart that indicate things are not right. Because women don't know.
Okay.
The number one thing I see is polycystic ovaries, as I mentioned from my client earlier. And its number one symptom is irregular periods. What I mean by that, your cycle is 30 days, 40 days, 60 days, jump back to 30, just all over the place. No consistency whatsoever. If that is you, we would suspect that. You owe it to yourself to find out, because there are definitely things that you can do through diet and exercise and supplements to slow that down and get it back to normal.
Yeah. I mean, you've been in the game longer than I have, but I'm seeing right now a lot of endometriosis. So what does that look like? That is, I don't know if your mom's ever told you, you're going to have some warning signs of, spotting and, might be a couple of days before you start your period. Well, that's not normal. That is a huge indicator of low progesterone.
And the tail end brown bleed. No one knew that either.
Yeah, so any brown bleeding is not normal. If you're having really terrible cramps, that's not normal. I mean, it's okay to feel discomfort, but we're not talking like, in bed. For me, I had to do an ibuprofen regimen for 72 hours straight. Every 4 hours.
No, I've seen patients that came in for vomiting and out of school or work for 2 days because of it.
Yeah.
Hannah's is terrible.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
When you start learning to check for your cervical mucus, if it's limited, you don't have a lot. that's an indicator of endometriosis.
Yes, it is.
And so for those listening, I used an app, a general app for many, 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 many years. And it did not track cervical mucus. I just wanted to know when I was about to start my period. And my periods are regular. I mean, we're talking like, 26 to 28 days. I mean, spot on, no birth control. But I did have this painful cramping, but I thought that was normal. I did have some heavy bleeding. I thought that was normal. I did have brown spotting. I thought that was normal. And then I get engaged and I go to you and you're like, you probably need to see a NAPRO doctor. And then turns out I had stage 3 endometriosis.
Right.
So
unusual bleeding is a big one too that I see a lot of intermenstrual. So around the time you're not supposed to be having a period, just in general, some spotting and light spotting. I can't believe it. We have 1 minute left to wrap up this wonderful show. My name is Pam Marvin. This is Shannon
Allgeyer.
This is her married name. I'm still practicing. But thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions about natural family planning or fertility awareness-based methods, you can always get in touch with us through the Red Sea Radio or KEDC's Facebook page. Shannon and I are available taking clients all the time. We'd love to talk to you, even if you just want to visit or have a intro session with the two or one of us. Yeah. We're happy to do that. She works evenings and weekends, and I work during the week. It works out beautiful.
Yep.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. You were such a pleasure to be around. I can't wait to talk shop off the air, too.
I know we did for a long time before.
Yeah. So, well, God bless all of you. And until next time, go and love your neighbor.